Hello everybody.
Good morning.
Last week we discussed our move and the challenges that has, and that place where we try to do it from, where we will have to do it from, otherwise it will just be so overwhelming. And we were talking a little bit about dropping into that deeper place where there's a place of quiet, where it's not up here where the storm is raging. And we thought to maybe just discuss that depth dimension a little bit further this week.
Because often in talks one can touch on a subject or on an issue and almost assume that, well, it is understood or it makes sense to everybody, but it is such an important aspect that even if people have a sense of what it is, it's almost standing still and looking at it for a while, because it plays a very, very big role.
I think it's really important for us as well to explore it, it more. So I think in general, we tend to, I think there are three ways that we sort of look at the depth dimension, or people generally. I think we don't like to go there because often that is where you need to sort out things.
Yeah.
So I think if we talk about the depth dimension, is that place inside of you, dropping into your heart, dropping into your body, and feeling being aware of emotions, being aware of triggers, being in touch with what is happening with you in conversation, in relationships.
It's almost the soul space, the deep essence, where the emotions that really, really stir you, they house there. And your deep passions, they are housed there.
But also your very deep wounds might be
fears,
hidden in there. So you might even not be aware of those.
Yes.
It might be a place where you don't go, and I've never gone. So you might ignore that depth dimension.
Because it's too difficult.
Yeah, and if you ignore it, then you will try to sidestep it all the time. So your life will show that. You will be making it more busy, fill it up with things, or just waste time on social media, or whatever you do to not go there, to numb the mind, numb the heart.
And there are many support for us in the modern society to numb things.
Yeah, it's a very we can stay on the surface for our whole life and not have a moment that is just not full.
It's interesting. Thomas Merton, who said, you can live your whole life and die without meeting the person who has lived your life.
Gosh, that is sad.
And
so amazing.
Yeah.
Me not to meet me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if we don't go to the depth dimension, the long and the short is we don't get to know ourselves.
Yes. In essence, that is what we mean with the depth dimension. Getting in touch with yourself, getting to know yourself, getting to go to those places that needs to be healed for you to be fully who you were made to be.
So you said there are three. The one is to ignore it.
Yeah, I think there are areas in that deeper place where we are actually not aware of it. So and it takes time to sort of unearth that, and almost like we always talk about in archaeological dig. So there might be places.
Thomas Keating's.
Term. And then so we try. It's almost like we try to keep our lives at the surface, and to keep it sort of just we try to like a stream. If we can't go this way, we just flow the other way. We don't go underground. We just try to make it easy, least resistance on the level of our everyday life. And I was thinking of a quote by James Finley where he actually talks about a stance towards God of the least resistance. But that is on that deeper level. So he says, if we want to go there, if we want to have things that we really honestly cannot make happen ourselves, say you're struggling with forgiveness or with very deep wounds, and you cannot heal those yourself, you cannot get yourself to forgiveness, then he says to take the stance of least resistance, to make happen that which you cannot make happen. And I think that is on that deeper level. Like we try to make our lives easier at the top, there's a place inside of us where we have to actually open up and not have any resistance toward what God is trying to do in our lives. And I think it's the only way that it will happen if we don't resist it all the time.
Yeah, and we said if we go there, we get to know ourselves. But the fact is, when we go there, we also get to know God.
Yeah, like
because God is there at the essence. Because it is also, when we get in touch with the depth dimension, we get in touch with our God self.
And I think is it also James Finney who says we suffer from a depth deprivation.
Yes. Yes.
Because we don't go there. And so I think it makes the ego feel in control.
When we don't go there.
When we don't go
Yeah.
there.
Because the ego often kicks and screams when we go there, because it threatens the ego's position, whether it is in status, whether it is in comfort, whether it is in a sense of superiority or whatever.
Safety even.
Safety.
Yeah.
Safety. Because it can be disruptive. Let's not fool ourselves that it is an easy journey.
No.
That is why we often avoid it. It's difficult to face our pain, to face a childhood wound, in whatever shape it may be. So it is difficult. And it is interesting, last week in one of the training sessions that we had in Pretoria, I used the image of Richard Rohr, or the quote of Richard Rohr, and when I first read it, it really struck me, because
it's almost shocking.
It's almost shocking, where Richard says, this inner journey, this inner work, this going to the depth dimension with all its challenges is so difficult for the ego. It can be even bodily, on a bodily level, it can be difficult. It can be so difficult that we would rather go to church. And it is, because the ego is so clever. The ego can use something like church attendance to avoid going deeper.
Yeah, and to soothe the conscience.
Yes.
Because then I've done my bit in
Yes.
terms of the department in my life called religion or
Yes.
spirituality. So I can relax about that. That's been taken care of. I can carry on with the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So what would be the real, like we said, the real advantages and the riches that lie at those deeper places? I think, like we said last week, it helps in terms of difficult periods in your life where things are really chaotic. There's a solidity to
Excuse me.
to where you come from, and it helps. You will still get frustrated, you will still be irritated, you will still feel flustered and overwhelmed and all of that, but you can go back to your practice, and for that hour, half an hour, you can rest in God, you can give over, and when you get out of that practice, you feel different, you feel able again to carry on. And I think for me that is the one thing, but I think also to be able to heal those deep things so that you can be everything that you, because those things really truly block us so badly.
Yeah. And when we face it, those are the passageways also to fruit. And that we touched on a while back as well, because James Finley says that those things that we wish were not true about ourselves, those places are gifts. And God is giving it to us. So in other words, it helps going to the depth dimension. It solidifies, it grounds us. Solidify is not the right word. It grounds us. But it also helps us to live an authentic life. To be in touch with our deep, deep self, where we look at our shadows, our weaknesses, and the ego, who is so supportive and wants to protect us, where you can say to the ego, it's fine, I'm all right, even if I have my flaws.
And also I'm safe in terms of those things that trigger me so badly because they come from childhood wounds, and I'm not that child anymore.
Yes.
So just also to be able to hold the ego's fear and know that you will be okay, even with those fearful feelings inside of you. You can actually be the mother to those feelings.
Yes. Yes. And so in order to go to the depth dimension, you touched on it very briefly now, and to help us with that, the contemplative practice helps with that, eh?
I think that helps a lot, but I think it is all underpinned by the God image. Like everything. I think it will be extremely difficult to have a stance of least resistance if I don't trust God. If I don't feel God to be benevolent towards me. It's just like in a normal relationship. If I don't trust you, my defenses will be up all the time. I will be guarded. I will be reading what you say in a different light, and I will mistrust it. If I trust that you mean it well with me, and the world in general means it well with me, and God means it well with me, then I come from a very different place.
Yes.
So I think in terms of that, the place would be to start to look at, how do I see God? And can God show himself, herself to me in a way that I can really feel the benevolence, feel the love, and then be able to be vulnerable enough to not have that resistance in terms of changing the deep hurts.
And in that sense, one's journal can help in looking at your God image, writing in your journal, the practice itself, because it's entering into this space where God is busy and present, but also a spiritual director can help you a lot in looking at your God image. So that plays a big role.
Tell that little story about the contemplative practice and the sun.
Where we say the contemplative practice is so important. There's this little anecdote or little story about this pupil or follower, disciple, coming to the master and says, "Master, when I'm busy with my practice, will this lead to my enlightenment, to enter into this space where I'm saved and where everything is all right?" And the Master says, your practice will help you as little as that practice will help or will cause the sun to rise. And then the disciples said, but Master, then why am I doing this practice? Why are we doing it? And the Master said, so that you will be ready when the sun rises.
You will be present when the sun
And you will be present when the sun rises.
Yeah.
So when we do our practice, we don't let the deep things happen, but we are present when the deep things happen.
Yes, that's very beautifully said.
So in that sense, and trust the depth dimension. Trust that the depth dimension is for your benefit, even if it is not always easy. Mae West, I'm always amazed by what Mae West said, because she was this actress and she said, I never said it's going to be easy. I said it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, and I think when you start going there and you start addressing those things with God, you see the fruit in your life very quickly. And people around you also see that, because there's a shift that you might not be even aware of.
Yeah.
It might be very subtle, like James always. It's
subtle.
Yeah, it's there, but it's there.
Yeah.
So we hope you have a wonderful week.
And thank you for the feedback for this blog. We are going to use a picture that one of you sent us, and it's such a good illustration of what we were talking about. So thank you also for feedback always coming through.
Keep well, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.